Pause, look at the audience with calm eyes. Before you give up, listen. Before you decide that it's over, pause. Because sometimes it's not your life that's falling apart. It's your patience that's running out. We all have days when everything feels too heavy. The world feels too loud. The mind feels too tired. You wake up and wonder, why am I even trying? Have you ever felt that way? I pause for audience response. I've met so many people who said, I was about to give up, and then something. A word, a smile, a moment reminded me to hold on just a little longer. And that little longer changed everything. You see, my dear friends, life's beauty is often hidden behind the noise of our own doubts. We think silence means failure, when in truth, silence is where strength is born. When nothing moves outside, something begins to move inside. So before you give up, listen not to the noise of the world, but to the whisper of your own soul. The whisper that says, this too shall pass. Keep walking. Because sometimes, the moment you think it's the end, it's actually the beginning of the best chapter you've never read yet. Days forever wandering. Isn't that what most of us live through without even realizing it? Days when we stare at the ceiling late at night, questioning if we're on the right path, if our efforts are even being noticed, if life is ever going to give back what we've been pouring into it. Those moments when your mind keeps whispering, what's the point? That space between confusion and clarity is what I call the wandering zone, where life silently tests your patience, your faith, and your purpose. There are days when nothing makes sense. You wake up, go through the same routine, talk to the same people, face the same problems, and it feels like the cycle will never end. You might look at others and think they've figured it out, while you're still trying to piece together fragments of direction. But here's the truth. Everyone you admire once lived through their own wandering days. The difference is, they didn't give up in that phase of confusion. They kept walking even when they couldn't see the road ahead clearly. Imagine a traveler walking through a foggy forest. The mist is so thick he can't see more than a few steps ahead. He doesn't know where the road leads, but he knows stopping won't clear the fog. He keeps moving. Step by step, as he continues forward, the fog slowly begins to lift. Life is exactly like that. The fog of uncertainty doesn't lift when you stop. It lifts when you move. Those days of wandering are not wasted. They're the days when your inner strength quietly trains itself. When you're wondering about your purpose, your future, or your place in this world, you are actually in the process of awakening. Confusion is not a curse, it's the beginning of clarity. Just as dawn begins in darkness, understanding begins in uncertainty. Think of a seed buried in the soil. It can't see the sunlight, can't feel the open air. Everything around it is dark and heavy, but still it grows, not because it knows where to go, but because it trusts that there's something beyond the soil. That is what wandering days are. Your soul growing through the soil of life, preparing to break into the light. There are people who rush through this phase. They want immediate answers, quick results, and instant peace. But life doesn't work like that. Just as you can't pull a flower open before it's time, you can't force clarity before your mind is ready. Every great discovery, whether it's in science, art, or spirit, came from long periods of wandering, waiting, and walking through the unknown. When the heart aches for clarity, when the mind aches for peace, you're being shaped for something deeper. I remember once speaking to a young man who said, I've been trying so hard for years, I've done everything right, yet nothing's happening. I asked him, have you noticed how a tree grows? He looked at me, puzzled. I said, for the first few years, a tree's roots grow deeper and wider underground before it even shows its first strong branch above the surface. The real growth happens where no one can see. That's exactly what's happening to you. You're not failing, you're rooting. And that's what I wish more people would understand. Your wandering days are not signs that you're lost. They're signs that you're alive, evolving, and meant for something that requires deeper roots. Don't rush through them. Sit with your questions. Learn from your discomfort. Sometimes the answers don't come through thinking harder. They come through surrendering deeper. There's beauty in not knowing everything. Because when we don't know, we listen more, we observe more, we humble ourselves before life. The ego wants control, but the soul wants connection. And in your wandering, you are reconnecting, not with your plans, but with the presence of something greater guiding you. You may not have all the answers today, but the fact that you're still here, still breathing, still seeking, means life hasn't given up on you. So why should you give up on yourself? Each day you wonder, something within you is being refined. Your patience, your faith, your resilience. These are qualities no school can teach, no success can guarantee, and no book can gift. They are learned in the quiet hours of uncertainty. The world may not see your silent progress, but the universe does. Every effort, every tear, every prayer whispered in confusion is recorded in the language of growth. So, when you find yourself in those endless wandering days, when your mind feels foggy and your heart feels heavy, remind yourself that you are still becoming. You are not behind, you are not broken, you are being built in silence. The very questions you wrestle with today are shaping the wisdom you'll speak with tomorrow. One day, you'll look back and realize those confusing days were not wasted time, they were sacred time. They were the quiet training grounds of your soul. Because life doesn't always reveal answers in words. Sometimes it reveals them through experience, through waiting, through faith. So don't curse your wandering days, embrace them. Let them humble you, soften you, and strengthen you. For it is in those days that the soul learns to trust what the eyes cannot see and what the mind cannot yet understand. And when the time comes, you will rise, not with arrogance, but with gratitude, for having walked through the wandering and still chosen to believe. Because every soul that has ever found light first had to walk through its own wandering night. The world's noise and the silence within, these are two forces that constantly pull us in opposite directions. Every morning, we wake up to a world that demands our attention. The phone buzzes before our eyes fully open. Notifications rush in before our mind finds its center, and before we've even taken a conscious breath, we are already tangled in the web of noise. We scroll, we compare, we react, and somewhere in that constant movement, we lose the ability to simply be. Have you noticed how uncomfortable silence has become for most people today? The moment there's quiet, the hand automatically reaches for the phone, the remote, the playlist, anything to fill the gap. But here's a truth the wise have known for centuries. When life becomes too loud, silence is not your escape, it's your healing. Noise doesn't just come from outside, it comes from within. The noise of comparison, the noise of overthinking, the noise of regrets, of what ifs, and why me? It's the noise that tells you you're not enough, that you're behind, that everyone else has it figured out but you. It's strange. We live in a world that never stops talking, yet so few truly listen. And the most tragic part is that we forget to listen to the one voice that matters most. The voice within. I once met a man who was on the verge of giving up on everything. His job, his dreams, even his relationships. He said, "I just can't handle the chaos anymore." I asked him, "When was the last time you sat in silence?" He laughed. "Who has time for that?" he said. And that's the irony. We say we have no time for silence, yet we waste so much time in the noise of meaningless distractions. Silence doesn't require hours, it only requires intention. It's not about sitting in a dark room doing nothing. It's about pausing long enough to hear what your soul has been trying to tell you. When you sit in silence, you begin to notice the small things again. The rhythm of your breath, the stillness of the air, the beating of your own heart. These moments are not empty, they're full of life's deepest truths. Silence is not loneliness, it's connection. It connects you to yourself, to the divine, and to the present moment. The noise outside divides you, but the silence within unites you. There's a story of a musician who was once asked what makes his music so beautiful. He smiled and said, "It's not the notes, it's the pauses between them." The beauty of life works the same way. It's not in the constant doing, achieving, or running. It's in the pauses we allow ourselves between all of that. Silence is the pause that gives meaning to the noise. Without silence, even music becomes just sound. Without silence, life becomes just motion without meaning. Many people are scared of silence because it forces them to face themselves. In the stillness, the mind brings up the things we've avoided: pain, mistakes, loneliness. But what if that silence is not punishing you, but purifying you? What if silence is not your enemy, but your most loyal teacher? When you sit quietly, your heart begins to whisper answers that the noise could never give you. The answers don't come in words, they come in peace. Think of the ocean. When its surface is stormy, you can't see your reflection. But when the water becomes calm, you can see clearly into it. Your mind works the same way. In noise, everything becomes distorted. In silence, everything becomes visible. The clarity you seek in life doesn't come from doing more. It comes from being still enough to see what's already there. Let's take a simple example from everyday life. Imagine you're trying to solve a tough problem. Maybe at work, in a relationship, or about your future. You overthink, you talk to people, you analyze every possible outcome, and still you can't decide. You go for a walk, you take a quiet moment, maybe even stop thinking for a while, and suddenly an idea comes. That the moment of silence becomes the birthplace of clarity. Why? Because silence allows space for wisdom to enter. When your mind is crowded, insight can't find a seat. The noise of the world will always be there: opinions, trends, judgments, expectations. But you don't have to let it drown your peace. The world may be loud, but your heart doesn't need to be. You don't need to respond to every voice, every opinion, every problem right away. Sometimes, the most powerful response is quiet understanding. Silence doesn't mean weakness, it means strength that refuses to be reactive. It's not about running away from the world, it's about learning to carry silence within you wherever you go. Even in the middle of chaos, you can find an inner pause, that moment between stimulus and response where peace lives. That's where wisdom grows. The more you practice listening to that quiet inner space, the more life begins to flow with grace. You stop chasing answers and start receiving them. The greatest discoveries, inventions, and spiritual awakenings in history were born not in the noise of the crowd, but in the quiet of solitude, because silence is the workshop of the soul. It's where understanding is built, where strength is restored, and where direction is found. So the next time life feels too loud, don't escape it with more noise. Don't rush to fill the silence. Just sit with it. Close your eyes. Breathe. Let the world spin while you stay still. You'll be amazed how the answers you've been chasing will slowly rise to the surface, like stars revealing themselves when the night grows quiet. Because in the end, peace is not found when the world becomes silent. Peace is found when you do. And once you find that silence within, no noise in the world can ever shake it again. The practice of stillness is one of the greatest powers a human being can ever cultivate. In a world that glorifies speed, competition, and constant motion, being still almost feels unnatural. People feel guilty for pausing. They think if they stop, they'll fall behind. But have you noticed something? Even a car engine, no matter how powerful, needs to rest before it overheats. Nature itself pauses. The day gives way to night. The tides rise and fall. The heart beats and rests between every beat. Life has its rhythm, and within that rhythm, stillness is not weakness, it's wisdom. We live in a time when everyone is running to prove, to earn, to achieve, to be seen, to be liked. But in this constant race, we've forgotten that peace is not found by running faster, it's found by stopping deeper. Stillness is not doing nothing, it's doing everything that matters quietly, calmly, and consciously. It's the art of being fully present without needing to control everything. Think about how we react when things go wrong. The moment we face a problem, our mind panics. It starts running from one thought to another. What if I fail? What will people think? Why is this happening to me? Until the worry itself becomes bigger than the problem. But when you learn the practice of stillness, you learn to pause before reacting. You learn to breathe before you break. You learn that every situation doesn't need an instant answer. Some moments just need your silent observation. Have you ever dropped something fragile, like a glass, and watched it shatter? The immediate instinct is to rush and pick up the pieces. But if you do that without waiting, you'll cut your hand. Life is like that. When something breaks, a relationship, a plan, a dream, don't rush to fix it immediately. Sit in stillness first. Let the emotional dust settle. Then you'll see clearly which pieces are worth picking up and which are better left behind. I remember once watching a potter at work. As he shaped clay on his wheel, the entire room was silent except for the sound of his hands molding the form. There was something almost spiritual about it. Every few seconds, he would stop spinning the wheel, observe what he had created, and then continued. That pause, that still moment, was what gave balance to the art. If he had rushed, the shape would have collapsed. And isn't that how our lives are? Without pauses, without reflection, our shape, our stability, begins to collapse under the weight of haste. Stillness is not the absence of activity, it's the presence of awareness. You can be walking through a crowded street and still be calm inside. You can be surrounded by chaos and still not lose your center. When you learn to stay still inside, external noise can no longer disturb your inner peace. This is what spiritual masters have always known. The world doesn't have to change for you to feel calm. You have to change how you relate to it. Let's look at a simple example. Imagine being stuck in traffic. Horns are blaring, people are irritated, everyone is trying to get ahead. You can either join the chaos, honk, complain, and exhaust yourself, or you can turn down the noise, Take a deep breath and accept that some things are not in your control. The traffic may not move faster, but your peace will. That stillness, choosing serenity even when the situation doesn't change. When you practice stillness, you begin to see life differently. You stop seeing delays as punishments and start seeing them as divine pauses. You realize that maybe that delay, that rejection, that unanswered question, it's not life being unfair, it's life asking you to wait until you're ready to receive. In stillness, timing becomes clear. You understand that everything has its moment, and rushing only disturbs the natural flow of grace. Sometimes, the best answers come not when you're searching, but when you're silent. There's a reason the greatest minds and saints often retreated into solitude before making their most important decisions. When the world quiets down, the truth becomes audible. The answers we seek externally often already exist inside us, but they can only be heard in the calm between two thoughts. You don't have to go to a mountain or a forest to practice stillness. You can find it in your living room, in your car, in your workplace, or even in the middle of a crowd. It's not about where you are, it's about how you are. You can begin by taking a few moments every day to sit silently, breathe deeply, and observe your thoughts like clouds passing in the sky. Don't fight them. Don't judge them. Just watch them drift. Slowly, your mind begins to understand that peace is not found in escaping life, but in embracing it calmly. There's a deep strength that comes from stillness. It doesn't make you passive, it makes you powerful. Because when you are calm, your actions become conscious. When you are patient, your words carry weight. When you are centered, your presence itself becomes healing to others. People who practice stillness are like trees, rooted, grounded, and able to withstand any storm because they found strength in silence. So, when life feels overwhelming and you don't know what to do, don't always rush for answers. Just pause, sit with yourself, listen. In that quiet space, something sacred begins to unfold. You may not realize it immediately, but slowly your thoughts become clearer, your emotions lighter, and your path brighter. The world teaches you to keep moving, but the soul teaches you to sometimes just be. The practice of stillness is not about retreating from life, it's about returning to yourself. Because in stillness, you meet the real you, not the one the world expects, but the one your soul remembers. And once you've met that self, no noise, no chaos, no storm can ever truly shake you again. Progress over perfection. These three simple words can transform the way we see life. Yet most people are trapped in the endless chase of perfection, waiting for the perfect time, the perfect plan, the perfect feeling before they begin anything. And that's why so many dreams stay locked inside hearts that never dare to take the first imperfect step. The truth is, perfection is not the goal of life, growth is. You don't need to be flawless to move forward. You just need to be willing to keep walking, even with the flaws you carry. Think of a child learning to walk. They fall countless times. They wobble, stumble, cry, and fall again. But not once do they stop trying because they didn't walk perfectly the first time. They don't compare their tiny steps to someone else's confident stride. They keep trying until one day those shaky steps become steady. That's progress. That's life's true rhythm. Step, fall, rise, repeat. Somewhere along the way, we adults forgot this simple lesson. We became so obsessed with getting everything just right that we stopped celebrating the beauty of trying. I once met a young woman who wanted to start a business. She had ideas, passion, and purpose, but every time she tried to begin, her mind told her, It's not ready yet. She'd say, when I save more money, when I get more followers, when I have more confidence. And years passed. Her dream never began because she was waiting for perfection to knock. I told her, you don't build confidence before you start, you build it by starting. That's how life works. You don't wait to feel ready, you begin, and in that beginning, readiness finds you. Perfection is like a mirage. The closer you think you get to it, the further it moves. No matter how much you achieve, there will always be something missing, something that could have been better. But progress is real. It's measurable. It's humbling. Progress is what happens when you fall 7 times and stand up 8. When you choose to keep learning, keep trying, and keep showing up even when things don't go your way. Look around. Nature itself teaches this. The seasons don't arrive perfectly, they evolve. The sun doesn't rise suddenly, it climbs slowly from the horizon, one shade of light at a time. A tree doesn't grow overnight, it strengthens silently, unseen for years. Yet each moment is progress. If nature doesn't rush perfection, why do we? Sometimes our obsession with perfection comes from fear. Fear of judgment, fear of failure, fear of not being enough. We want everything to be flawless so no one can criticize us. But perfection is a prison disguised as a standard. It keeps you from living freely, experimenting, learning. When you give yourself permission to be imperfect, you give yourself permission to grow. Imagine a musician practicing for a concert. At first, their fingers fumble over the notes, their timing is off, and the melody sounds incomplete. But with each repetition, it improves. Not because they suddenly became perfect, but because they allowed themselves to sound wrong until it sounded right. That's progress. Perfection never built mastery, patience did. There's a quiet power in imperfect effort. It's honest, it's human. People connect more to someone who tries and fails than to someone who pretends to never struggle. Because deep down, we all know that growth is messy. Life's most beautiful journeys are written in smudged lines, not straight ones. When you accept that every failure becomes a step forward, every mistake a hidden teacher, I often tell people, don't aim to be perfect. Aim to be better than yesterday. If you improve even by one small act, that's a victory. Maybe you handled your anger better today. Maybe you prayed with more sincerity. Maybe you spoke with more kindness. That's progress. That's the quiet miracle of consistent effort. We tend to overlook these tiny steps, but these are the steps that eventually create transformation. One day, when you look back, you'll realize that what once seemed small and insignificant was actually monumental. The person who went for one short walk every day eventually built a strong, healthy body. The one who read a few pages daily built a wise, disciplined mind. The one who practiced gratitude for a few minutes each morning built a peaceful heart. Every small act of effort compounds into greatness over time.